Hey, I'm Michael Coker, and I'm the mayor of the city of Mulberry. And if you've ever wanted to be on a game show, you might want to watch this episode because we have a special treat here. We have Gene Weaver, one of Mulberry's residents, who is a frequent guest on game shows. So if you want to learn more about that, stay tuned. All right. As I stated before, we have Miss Jean Weaver here, local celebrity in Mulberry, and she's going to talk a little bit about some really cool things that she's had been going on that you might be interested in, and maybe even you might volunteer to do. So, Jean, first, thank you for being here.
No problem. I'm so glad that I could be here today.
Yeah, no problem. So, first off, before we kind of dive into what we were talking about, can you just say who you are, where you're from? Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. My name is Jean Weaver, and I am married to my husband, Adam. We have two girls who go to Duncan Creek Elementary. We've been here in Georgia for about 6 years now, always in Mulberry, always in this same house. We're originally from Texas, so go Cowboys. And we are from A&M. So we both graduated from A&M, and then we also root for the Buckeyes too, because his family's from Ohio. But
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about what kind of drew you to this community. Like what originally, obviously, I know you said you've lived here for a long time before it was even Mulberry,
right.
but what kind of drew you? What are the things about this community that you really enjoy?
I think, well, when we first started moving here, you're looking at the logistics of like buying a house and you want to check off all the boxes, but then you get down to, your top three, top four houses, and then you're looking at the pros and cons of like, okay, what makes this house better? What makes this? So when we visited all the houses, we kind of looked at the neighborhoods, we kind of looked at the green space area. Coming from Dallas, it's very city, very concrete jungle type thing. And so it was nice to see like, ooh, look at all these trees, look at all these hills, look at all these parks. And I think looking around, and I had two kids under the age of 5 then, it was like, all right, the libraries were awesome and their programming, just all the different parks. And it wasn't just like here's a green space. It's like awesome playgrounds that are like safe, and like some of them are fenced in. So I kind of picked out my favorite, park date areas. And just the people, the community, going to the grocery store and just seeing, the same people over and over, and they kind of get to know your name and that kind of thing. Again, as a stay-at-home mom, it was one of those, I went to the same places over and over once I found the place that I liked. So even the grocery stores, I'd be like, oh, hi, Billy, or like, hi, Brenda. Like, it was nice to be like, oh, nice to see you again. Or the restaurants too. It was hard coming from Dallas, especially with like the good Mexican food and the good barbecue and stuff.
Yeah.
But once you found the good restaurants here and the people here, it's really the people that make the community for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I will say this. I mean, obviously in Mulberry, the parks are one of my favorite things as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Mulberry Park is incredible,
Mhm.
right? But I will say that sense of community you talked about, I think that's one of the most important
Yeah.
things. And having, yeah, I will say kind of a funny story about you and your husband is, when I first met you, I was amazed at how big your network is. I felt like everyone in the city of Mulberry it's like the Kevin Bacon thing. It's like somehow they're connected to the Weavers at
Yeah.
some point. And I remember even knocking on doors with when I was running for city council. And I would go around and knock doors, and people would be like, "Oh, we know you. We know the Weavers." And I'm like, another check mark in the box of somebody who knows the Weavers. But well, we're glad you're one of, I think, Mulberry's favorite residents. I feel like everybody knows you guys. But I really wanted to talk. A lot of people don't know that you're somewhat of a local celebrity around
A
here.
little bit, yeah.
And you've kind of become this person who frequents game shows.
Yeah.
So first off, just that's so random. Talk
is
about
very
how
random.
you became or how'd you start doing this?
So growing up, my mom loved Wheel of Fortune. So we'd always watch Wheel of Fortune growing up. And she's the one that would get the puzzle before it even, she would actually be really good at game shows, but she's probably camera shy. And so after that, now when I watch game shows, I'm the one yelling at the TV. So like we'll watch different game shows like, Pyramid and Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy. Jeopardy's not my best because it's very intellectual trivia type
You're
thing.
very intellectual.
But so Adam just kind of got tired of me yelling at the TV. He's like, dude, you should just be on it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then they always have that little clip at the end that's like, if you want to be on this show, apply here. And it's just one of those things you kind of look over. Well, Adam was like, I'm gonna I'm going to send her application in.
Wow.
So he just went online, he filled out the application. And then at one point he was like, okay, I kind of have to tell her, like, let's, you have to kind of put your input in it. So we filled out the application, and like a week later, a producer called. So it's actually very, very quick. Like you think it's one of those like far-fetched ideas, but as long as you're pretty good at like what the game show is, and as long as you're kind of upbeat, I'm pretty energetic. Like I know no stranger. I think that's why people know me, because it's like, even at the grocery store, I'm like, oh, I like your earrings. Tell me more about your life type thing. So as long as you're kind of what they're looking for on TV, and sometimes you kind of have to fake it to make it type thing. But just ever since then it was like 2 weeks later, producers called, and then it actually was COVID. So my first game show was Pyramid, and it shoots in New York. But COVID happened, and then it took a year later for me to even fly out there. And then I had to quarantine. Wow. It was like a whole ordeal, but it ended up, airing a year and a half later. I got to meet Michael Strahan. I was the very last episode to air, so we got there at like 4 a.m., turn in our phones, couldn't be on our phones at all.
Wow.
Like there's a lot of cool behind the scenes stuff that you don't really notice. And just FYI, Michael Strahan's like makeup is just like perfect. Like he perfectly caked on there. Like he didn't move, but he really is like what you see is what you get with him. And he's super, super nice.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So take me through. So if I'm a Mulberry resident and I'm like, hey, I think I would be really good at this game show. I know you said there's an application process.
Right.
How complicated is that application process? Is there like a tryout? How does that work if I want to try it as well?
So depending on the game show, and, being here in Mulberry, I feel like it's kind of nice because Atlanta shoots a lot of things. I don't know if people know this, but like Atlanta is like a big hub for not just game shows, but like for movie sets. And like Addison has a lot of friends that are like in movies, like extras. So that's pretty cool that we're kind of like part of the thing, but not like in it. You know what I mean? Like we're not part of the huge traffic, but we're close enough to be available to those things. But I mean, all you do is you apply. I think the actual application isn't hard. It's like, tell me about yourself, that kind of thing.
And it's online typically?
It's online. Okay. It's very thorough though. It's like, tell me about yourself. And it's all the questions that people don't like answering about themselves. Like, what's your top 3 like best qualities about yourself? Or like sometimes there's like a random, like, if you were a fruit, like what would you be and why? Like just random like personality questions.
Sure.
So you kind of have to think out of the box, and they are looking for like random stories that would kind of make you outside of everybody else, kind of put you up front. So
something interesting.
Something interesting. So like my first one was, my name is Jean Weaver. Anytime someone meets me, they think Gary Wright's Dreamweaver. So that was like my go-to like spiel.
That's funny.
And then in this past game show with the 1% Club here in Atlanta, it was I blend in with the elementary school, because working at an elementary school, it was one of those. You can't tell that I'm an adult because I'm so small and short. And these 5th graders are so tall. Like they grow up faster than I feel like when I was in 5th grade. So, but it's very quick. It's a pretty easy process. It's just one of those things that's very thorough. And then at one point, if you get past it, they'll ask, to meet with a producer, or they'll ask for a video submission type thing.
Okay. So when you're doing that application, would you recommend that somebody, if I really want to be on a show, come up with some really interesting story about yourself?
Yes. The more interesting, the more far-fetched, I feel like the more that you will be accepted.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
And then once you submit that application, you said usually you hear back within what, a couple weeks or so?
Depending on the timing of the airing, it's very like, so this past one, it was like they needed me the following week. It was because, so the 1% Club films in Fayetteville, so near Atlanta. They need 100 people per episode.
Wow.
So it was like they need locals. And sometimes you don't even really need like, they don't film everybody's story. So depending on your story, and I didn't even really think mine was that interesting. It was like, I work at an elementary school. People, think that I'm a student. Like that's not really far-fetched, but because I was very like, fake it till you make it type thing. Personable. Right. They put me in there. But the guy next to me was like, he balances stuff on his face. Like that's very, very far-fetched. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So I think depending on your story, or you can, I think they would accept you. And I think locally, they just need a lot of people for that game show.
And then, okay, so you submit the application, you do the call with the producer. They say, we want you. Okay. talk to, the people listening about what happens. Like, do you have to pay for the expenses to get there? If there's travel involved, if you've got to go to another city, talk about the logistics of how that works.
So for New York, I think it depends on the game show. I think they want local people so they don't have to pay like for airfare and stuff like that. But depending on, your story, I know that they flew in some people from surrounding states because their story was so cool type thing. But with New York, they paid for my expenses. Like if I stayed in a hotel, they would have paid for that. They paid for the airfare and that kind of thing. But that's also a game show where it was just me as a contestant type thing. And then with this game show, I think you have to pay for your own local fare. So like I just stayed with somebody. And luckily,
Sure.
my call time was like 5 a.m. So you really could just drive from here. Like it's what, an hour, 2 hours.
Sure.
It's not horrible.
Yeah, no.
But if you wanted to be there, you could just get a local hotel or something like that.
And then let's talk about the actual like filming. So you
Yes.
show up, obviously you show up very early, 4 or
Yes.
5 in the morning.
Yeah.
How long are you there? Is it a lot of standing around? Do you get to interact with the host at all? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So with the pyramid one, you only film 2 people at a time. So we were there at 4 a.m. and I filmed at 9 p.m. But they have like a green room, so that's kind of cool. I learned how to beatbox from other, like you get to meet other people and you kind of talk to them about their skills and stuff like that. But they feed you. Like it's just like a typical green room of what you would think.
Okay.
Lots of snacks, lots of card games, lots of coloring. You just can't have your phone. You can't be on any kind of social media. You can't be on any kind of internet app type thing. This one locally, since we all filmed at the same time, we got done about maybe 1 or 2. And like being in the studio, that studio was different because there's 100 people and it's kind of like an amphitheater seating.
Okay.
So you're all kind of talking to the host. You're kind of talking with people, but again, no phone. They make you put all that up, I guess, just for legal wise. But yeah, the actual studio with Joel McHale. And again, Joel McHale was the host of that show. And he really is a funny guy. He is what you see is what you get with him as well. So there hasn't been one where I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is totally different than what you see on TV. But meeting other people was really fun. It was really cold in that studio.
Okay.
So I filmed in December and they aired it, last week or a couple weeks ago. But I just remember part of the application process, once you get chosen, you have to give 3 outfits and it can't be like, there's no logos, solid color is best, like unless that's your thing. Like there was one guy who wore like Hawaiian shirts, like that was the thing.
Okay.
But then you take a picture of yourself in the outfits and then they get to pick.
Really?
Yeah, they pick which one. I think depending on like you don't want 2 pinks together or like 2 greens together type thing. So that's part of the, so I was wearing like a sleeveless dress because that was the only thing I had and everybody was like in sweaters. So I was really cold in the studio. But they had great snacks in the green room and they had great like drinks and stuff like that too. So
pro tip, maybe do an outfit with a sweater. It's
pretty cold in the studio unless you're like, but the other one was you're nervous. So you're kind of sweating too. So you're like, I need some air to like, so I'm not like just profusely sweating, but people are like coming up to you and like, ooh, you're a little shiny and they'll like do makeup for you and stuff.
Interesting.
Like, ooh, your hair, like, let's fix that. So there's some people on the sidelines whose hair and makeup that will kind of tweak you a little bit to make you look your best.
It's so fascinating. I find this so interesting. So now talk about kind of your experience of playing the games. I mean, is there any tips you have for people of like, okay, you've done it, you've made it, you got chosen, you're on the game show. I know I would probably be extremely nervous, right? Yeah. I mean, what is your tip or recommendation for people who actually make it on the game show?
So once you get on it, depending on the show, I would definitely watch old episodes for sure. Watch old episodes of the game. Now, if it's a new show, you kind of don't really have anything, but like with this 1% Club, I guess a lot of game shows in the US, they take it from other, like from Britain or like from England type thing. So you can even watch those old episodes. With the 1% Club, it's very questions of like wit type thing. So you can actually look up. So the weekend before I taped, I just did quizzes. I just looked up like 1% quizzes and I just knocked it out as much as I could.
Do you feel like that helped?
It did. The other problem was I wish I had, like, I wish I filmed a little bit longer type thing. Like, I wish I had more time to prep, but it was one of those things like, hey, we need you. And I didn't want to say no because what happens if that opportunity didn't
Sure.
come again?
Right.
So it was literally, I only had like a week span. Like, I even told my job, I was like, I need a day off. And they're like, why? And I'm like, filming a game show. You can't tell anyone I'm filming a game show. And that's the other big thing is if you win money, or even if you don't win money, you can't tell anybody that you were, that you were on the game show. I mean, I'm sure there's some, I had to tell my job type thing. But like for Pyramid, when I won money, like I couldn't tell anyone. I told my husband, I think I might have told my mom, I'm not sure, but like and I told the people who I was staying with, like, cause but you cannot tell anyone, you sign all these sorts of things. Cause if it gets out, I think you like don't get your money. And then part of that too is they have a clause where it's like, you don't get your money unless it airs. So one of the contestants was like, well, what happens if this episode doesn't air? And then they were like, I don't, like, they kind of dismissed that, but you don't get your money unless the episode airs.
So if I go on a game show and I win $1 million, you're saying that I don't get to keep that million unless that show airs?
I think it depends on the network, but the past two, I did Fox and ABC, and maybe it depends on the game show, but it was like, you don't get your money until 6 months after the episode airs. So 6 months after the episode airs, not even after you tape it.
Wow. And so, okay, so we talked about you won some money on one of the shows.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about that process. Do they mail you a check? Do you get a bag of cash? Like, how does that work?
I wish I got a big check to put on my wall, but no, they mail it to you and it comes in it's just like a regular, it looks like a cashier's check type thing. And that's another thing too, that one of the questions always on your application is, what are you going to do with the money? And they never want to hear like, I'm going to save it, or like, I'm going to travel. Like they want very interesting or like kind of out of the box things. Yeah.
And like heartfelt, like I need this for to pay for this.
Yes. Because everyone's just going to be like, I'm going to pay my bills. Like I'm going to go travel. Like it needs to be interesting, like really, really interesting.
So, that's so fascinating. So if you had to pick kind of your one favorite thing about the entire process or being on the game show, what do you personally love about it?
Okay, so at this, I don't know if this is cheesy, but it really is whenever I post like, hey, because there's a whole thing about posting it too. You can't post it too early. They give you like a timeline of here's what you can post and here's your hashtags that you can use. But once you can post it, just like your community online of people, like I love that part. It's like, I saw you in a restaurant. And then like I'll get pictures of like all my friends, like we're all watching it as a family. We're all watching it here. And like we've moved around a lot. So hearing from people who haven't seen or talked to in years and be like, hey, I just saw you on TV. You did great. Like I just feeling the community again. I'm not trying to be like cheesy or anything, but really feeling a community of like, I saw you on TV. Oh my gosh, you did great. I got out too. Like I got out a long time ago. Like that's it really feels like, oh, I feel loved type thing.
I love that. And I will say too that obviously I had seen a couple people and I said, yeah, like, did you know that Jean was on this game show? And they were like, yeah, we watched it with her. So it is so interesting that how many people go back and really do kind of rally behind someone from the community and cheer them on.
Because it is kind of a random thing to be like, wait, what? You were in a game show? Like, really? And I was like, yeah, kind of random. And then when I tell them like, yeah, this one films locally, they're like, really? Like, and so it kind of makes them like, I kind of want to do it. I'm like, go for it. Like the worst that's going to say is like, no, it's not going to happen. But
And just a couple more questions before we wrap up here. I know that you've mentioned to me in the past that there is kind of a thing too, where if you become someone who's been on a couple, they actually want you to be on more episodes. Is that true?
Yeah. So I didn't even actually apply to be on the 1%. It's not like it's not, I have a job, I have a family. It's not one of those things where like, I'm just going to do game shows all the time, which there are some people out there. There's like one guy who's been on every single game show possible.
Wow.
Like Price is Right, Pyramid, like he's been on all it. He's such a good guy though. But after Pyramid, they included you in this like top secret social media group. And then from there, they say, hey, this game show is looking for this. This game show is looking for this. And then they'll put in like the application link. And so you can apply from there. But I wasn't one of those like, okay, I'm going to go do it type thing. But I feel like once you're on a game show, I feel like these producers, they might move around a lot to different game shows. So they kind of have this like contestant pool of like a listserv of emails type
Okay.
thing or phone numbers. So like I've asked, someone has called me before on like Name That Tune. I didn't have a passport because apparently it films in Ireland.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I mean, I have one now, but it was one of those like, we need people. And then I feel like once you're on it, they just kind of like, because it's not a lot of background check for them because they know that you've been on a game show. They know that you have the personality to do it. They know that you have the wit that you can do it. So I think once you're in that pool, like you kind of get asked to do it often.
So basically, once you kind of become one of the game show people, there's a rotation and you start to see more and more invites and more and more.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, so mine was 5 years in between, and there is a clause about like you can't be, I think you have a certain amount of time that you can be on it between game shows. Like you can't win money like every year type thing.
Okay.
And there's something to do with networks too. Like you can't be on the same network like twice. You can't do two game shows.
Interesting.
There's a lot of like logistics for sure. But if you're just doing it every once in a while, it's kind of cool to be like, yeah, every 5 years, like they'll call you back. They'll for sure. So, and that was another thing is like some random phone numbers calling me, like, do I want to answer it? And like, always answer it. After you're on a game show, you kind of always want to answer it because you're like, is this spam or is this like a producer calling that they got from, yeah. So.
All right. Well, as we wrap up, my kind of final question would be if there's somebody out there in Mulberry that's like, I want to be the next Gene Weaver. I want to be the next game show star in our community. Is there any other tips or any other advice you'd give them?
So I would say watch all the game shows and see which one you like best because you're going to know which one you're good at and maybe, bring your husband or your spouse in the room to be like, to give you feedback. Because, I mean, that's how it started it all was my husband was like, you're really good at this. And your spouse isn't going to lie to you. So if he's saying that you're really good at it, maybe you are really good at it. So I would just watch a bunch of game shows and see which one you like best. And then once you find one that you like, just watch all the episodes, watch those seasons over and over. And then there's always an application process. They're always looking for new contestants for sure. So, I mean, don't be scared to do it. The worst that's going to happen is you tried it and then, you didn't go on it and then you just find another game show. But it's a lot of fun. I for sure would recommend it.
I was going to say, for me, I have this like terrible fear of like if I went on the 1% Club, I'd get out on the first question.
And that's always, that is always a fear.
Yeah.
Always a fear. Or like, even with the pyramid, it was like, I did all this work. I flew out here. I missed my kid's 5th birthday. I missed her first day of kindergarten, and I'm going to come home with no money whatsoever. Like, it's just one of those things. Or even with 1%, it's like, I paid gas to, to go out there. And it's like, but I feel like money, they always say like, oh, money doesn't matter. But like, the experience is really fun. Like, there's not very many people that can be like, I was in a studio. I filmed a game show. I met interesting people. I met Joel McHale. I met Michael Strahan. Like, you can't really put money on that type thing.
Do it for the experience.
Do it for the experience for sure. It's a blast.
That's awesome. Well, Gene, thank you so much for doing this. It's so awesome. And I think everyone out there probably learned a lot about, what to do if you get on a game show and ultimately what happens when you get on the game show. So thank you for that information. And everybody out there in Mulberry, if you like getting updates like this about Mulberry, the city, about interesting people that live here, definitely like and subscribe. And to everybody out there, thanks for watching.